Hello my dear friends, welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. I've been looking forward to this.
I've been looking forward to this.
A couple of days ago, I shared with you some of my conversation with legendary Expanded Universe author Michael A. Stackpole. We talked about Rogue Squadron, the Expanded Universe versus Disney Canon, and today, my dear friends, I'm going to share the clip where he talks about George Lucas and whether Mara Jade should ever come into live action. Before I do though, I want to share some of my updated thoughts with you. This fan debate was pretty prevalent around 2020. After Luke appeared in The Mandalorian Season 2, fans went berserk. Suddenly the hope of having a canon heir to the Empire was on the table. With the characters from Star Wars Rebels and the Mando-verse, it might not look the same as Timothy Zahn's original work, but there is still some hope Dave Filoni's going to integrate some of that into his own movie further down the line, and maybe to some extent in Ahsoka Season 2 and other spin-offs. Just last week, Kathleen Kennedy said one of Lucasfilm's biggest priorities is expanding the New Republic. So does that mean more spin-offs? In either case, after what the sequel trilogy did to Luke, his return earlier in the timeline in the Mando-verse signified a couple of interesting implications. One of the main ones being Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni showing us little glimpses of Luke's life between episodes 6 and 7, the years leading up to The Force Awakens. He might be part of the fight against Thrawn. Some rumors suggest he might be involved in Ahsoka Season 2 to try and get Ahsoka and Sabine back. But primarily, he's setting up his Jedi Academy, the years before Ben Solo is trained and turns to the dark side. And as soon as we saw him in Mando, many of us were thinking, what if Luke's shift in character by time of The Force Awakens wasn't just due to losing Ben Solo to Snoke, but was also caused by an immeasurable loss? What if they reintroduced Luke's love interest from the Expanded Universe, his wife, Mara Jade? And what if during the fight between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant, she dies and Luke loses her? It's not just the grief from his nephew becoming Kylo Ren, it's mourning the loss of his wife. Now there are a few problems with this. Number one, the way Mara Jade is integrated is not going to be the same as in Legends. The role she filled, the storyline, it can't be one for one. The political situation of the Mando-verse with the Rebels characters is different enough that they're going to have to adapt her in a different way. Number two, there is evidence Disney doesn't want to give Luke a love interest. Mark Hamill said he wanted Luke's love life to be left open to the viewer for our own interpretation. Even though he's gone back and forth with the concept over the years, Mark seems to think they shouldn't outright confirm it. That being said, there is evidence Disney's been setting this up for a long time, ever since Star Wars Rebels Season 3. Before he played Baylan Skoll in Ahsoka, Ray Stevenson voiced Gar Saxon, Imperial Mandalorian, and one of his official positions was the Emperor's Hand, a canon version of the concept from the Expanded Universe. Perhaps after Gar Saxon was killed, Palpatine found Mara Jade and trained her as an assassin. Maybe she reemerges during the New Republic, working for one of the remnants. There are different ways they can go about it, but I decided to ask Michael Stackpole. Enjoy the conversation.
I think there's a space for her in canon. I think there's no doubt about that. If not Mara Jade per se, a character that fills that niche. I think there is room for that. How they would introduce her as Mara Jade and how they would introduce Mara Jade as a love interest for Luke are two different questions. I think it can be done. My sense is, if I got a phone call later this afternoon saying, hey, we need pictures for Mara Jade, you've got 2 hours, go. Could I come up with some? Absolutely. I think without a doubt, and I think it would be a lot of fun. They would just depend upon what age they want that character to be and when they want the character set. The key with Mara Jade and Luke, it's the standard storyline of, enemies to lovers. Later on, we're also going to need another villain who will at some point make an attempt to destroy Mara Jade, forcing her and Luke to become allies. We would have to break through, if it's Mara Jade from the earlier books, we'd have to break through whatever programming she's got that has got her locked in on Luke. So we got to provide a challenge there. Because we've got this other villain, there's other things going on with him. So that helps us move the story along. Yeah, it would be a piece of cake to do. It's just not going to function the way it did in the first Thrawn trilogy.
I was going to ask you, have you ever met George Lucas?
I have not met George Lucas. I was at Skywalker Ranch at lunch one day. It was my second visit at Skywalker Ranch, but we were having lunch, and I remember looking off to my right at a guy at a table, and I looked over there, and as I glanced back at my own plate, I thought to myself, hey, that guy looks a lot like George Lucas. And it took about 3 seconds for me to go, you moron, that is George Lucas. George was having lunch with someone else. Otherwise, Lucy had said that she would have introduced us. But no, I have never met him, but I have been out at Skywalker Ranch a couple times. When you look at where the first 3 films were, and then when the prequel films came in, you see how George's vision had shifted. At least my perception of what his vision was had shifted. So I'm not going to hazard a guess on what he likes or doesn't like right now. And yet I know it's got to be painful for him because you invest so much into this stuff, and if it isn't going exactly the way you thought it would, it's got to get under your skin a little bit.
Oh, and also, is it true George Lucas doesn't like Mara Jade?
I am not the creator of Mara Jade.
You know, I've heard that that George hates Mara Jade. Tim has never told me that, and Tim has met and spoken with George Lucas forever and ever and ever, up to and including the Union comic where we actually married Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker. Everything was approved at Lucasfilm. From the time that I started, Luke and Mara Jade were going to get married. That was the goal everybody was shooting for. Now, whether George's attitude changed on that and when exactly it changed, I don't know. But there was never any pushback on the two of them getting married. What was funny and ended up culminating in the Union comic where they did get married, I ended up writing a 4-page essay to convince Lucasfilm that in fact they should let Wedge Antilles get married and have children. Otherwise, only Jedi bred in that universe. So I lived somewhere in the Disney files, I guess now, there is a 4-page white paper about why people other than Jedi should have sex in the Star Wars universe.
The expanded universe was everything to Star Wars fans in the 1990s, in the gap between the original trilogy and The Phantom Menace. Do you feel like those books were appreciated more at the time, or do you think they're being rediscovered more today?
I think that at the time they were very much appreciated because there had been such a drought of Star Wars material. When Tim wrote the first books that came out from Bantam, and those books hit the New York Times bestseller list, and the first one had an initial print run of 50,000 units. That blew out in a week and a half. They did another 50, and that blew out in a week and a half. All of a sudden, publishing realized that Star Wars was very much alive. So I think, people were absolutely starving for Star Wars content at that time, and they were just, people glommed onto them and just threw themselves into those books. I think as we got more and more books out there, and as we got the new Jedi Order, there was a lot of material. It was tough to get caught up, and fandom may have been somewhat fractured in where their attention was. But I do think nowadays you are seeing a new appreciation for the expanded universe books, both because these are things people had never discovered, and also the nostalgia factor is just massive. I was out at an event over the weekend, and the number of adults came by with their children or their grandchildren, pointing out these books, pointing to iJedi and stuff. as things they really loved was just incredible.
So, on the subject of modern Star Wars, would you say you're happy with the TV shows?
You know, there have been pieces where I've enjoyed with all of the shows. I mean, even the Acolyte. When you have the Sith guy using the helmet to short out lightsabers. I mean, what was it, the end of episode 4, episode 5 in that series, where they had that huge, just gorgeous fight? You know, think of what you will or not, like or not, the Acolyte. Holy crap, that was some great cinematography and great choreography. So, you know, no, I don't like everything that's in the Book of Boba Fett. I really did not care for the way that it went together. It just didn't seem to be holding things together the way I would have hoped, a series would. But, that said, there's a lot of pretty pictures in there and a lot of cool stuff. So I have not had trouble. I have not had a hard time watching any of them, and I'm looking forward, especially to Andor season 2.